Hi, my name is Adam Whitmer. I'm the founder and host here at ComplianceCohort.com. This compliance clip is going to give an example of appraisal discrimination. That's right, we're talking about fair lending and we're talking about a hot topic, otherwise known as appraisal discrimination. Now, this is a topic that came up and was discussed in the December 2021 interagency webinar on fair lending. And in this webinar, they gave an example from a JP Morgan Chase bank conciliation agreement. And what happened here was the presenter in the webinar talked about how there was an instance where an African American homeowner living in a predominantly African American neighborhood in Chicago was looking to refinance her home with JP Morgan Chase. So she applied for credit, applied for this refinance, had an appraiser come out to her home. It was approved otherwise, and what happened is the appraised value came in what? It came in low. And she was upset. She thought her home value was worth more. Now, anybody who's been in banking for any amount of time knows that all customers think their home is worth more. It's a very common thing that happens. And however, this person, this applicant, actually decided that what she would do, because she got denied at Chase because her appraisal was low, is she would go to a competitor and apply. So she did. She went to a competitor. She applied for another refinance and didn't tell them necessarily about her prior denial and just went through the process of the refinance, had another appraiser come to her home. But this time, when the new appraiser came to her home, what she did is she made sure that she took down all personal items, pictures, artwork, anything that would show her race. She took it out of her home. And in fact, what she did, I believe, is have a third-party person come in and represent her and let the appraiser in so that the appraiser did not know the race of the homeowner. And what happened was that her home value in this new appraisal was much, much higher than it was with JP Morgan Chase. So here we had an instance where Chase had an appraiser that came in and her pictures, her race was prevalent and the appraisal came in low. Then she had another lender where the appraiser came in, a different appraiser came in, conducted the appraisal not knowing the race of the homeowner, and the appraisal came in higher. Now, from experience, I know that not all appraisers are created equal, so there's probably some elements that we don't know. That said, this was a conciliation agreement, and Chase ended up with some major restitutions. What the presenter explained was interesting here because they said this was the first discriminatory appraisal case that they saw. So this was the first time they uncovered this concern. But now they're seeing a wave of cases throughout the country. To me, this is something that's interesting because I've seen this before with the regulators. They find something, they spread the word, and they start looking for it everywhere. So I see this as a hot topic, something you should be paying attention to. And in fact, this is a topic that we covered in our recent Fair Lending Hot Topics program that's available in our store, ComplianceCohort.com/store. In fact, this is where these slides are coming from. Now, what's interesting about the relief kind of tells us some things you can do in your organization to make sure you don't have an issue with appraisal discrimination. The relief includes $500,000 for the complainant, but then it talks about public interest relief, including training for the staff, including the process to reevaluate appraised values, as well as fair lending training. So in your organization, what you can do is make sure that those people who are conducting your appraisal reviews, the people who are conducting your appraisal reviews are in fact trained to make sure the appraised value looks appropriate for the neighborhood, for the place it's located. And also they should be trained to look for any potential discrimination in the appraised value. I think that's really a key thing. Secondly, relief include that JP Morgan Chase had to conduct and provide periodic reminders to its staff of best practices and requirements to comply with policies and procedures. Now, I've said for years that training only lasts a period of time. What happens is when we train our team, they comply for a period of time and then there's this curve where they fall off. And I've been a big proponent for a long time of periodic reminders. I believe that training should occur, starts to fall off, you hit a periodic reminder, you see it level out, you conduct training again, it levels out, periodic reminder, and so on and so forth. So that's what the relief included as part of the settlement with JP Morgan Chase. Also, Chase had to include a review process to reevaluate appraisers. So they now have, or appraisals, so they're reevaluating this. And they had to conduct a change to their appraisal transmittal letter that probably included a fair lending clause stating that you will not violate fair lending laws, and you will conduct your appraisal in a manner that does not discriminate. And they also had to change their adverse action notice process. And I'm not sure what that entailed exactly, but it's definitely something to look into and see if you have any concerns when it relates to a denial. Maybe when there is an adverse action notice, you have a second review of that appraisal if the denial is for the appraisal. The other thing I would consider is during your appraiser review process that you look and see if your appraisers have fair lending training. You look and see if your appraisers are qualified and if there's any complaints on them that could lead to discrimination, and conducting that due diligence on your appraisers. And when I was conducting this fair lending hot topics training recently, I received a question where somebody said, well, what do we do for a smaller institution and we don't have a good sample size to know if the value is good? And how can we do that anyway if we're not allowed to push back on appraised values and not influence an appraiser? Well, I think the biggest thing you do is during your due diligence process when you're evaluating your appraisers to determine if they understand fair lending and having conversations with them on a general perspective about fair lending, not on a specific property, but about a general perspective, and even mention this conciliation agreement and say, hey, regulators are starting to look at this. We need to make sure that you're not doing this. Of course, you understand this, but we need to make sure you're taking fair lending training, so on and so forth. So a lot of good information in this. Again, this comes from our Fair Lending Hot Topics program that's available in our store at compliancecohort.com/store. This is one of many topics that we cover. We actually take a deep dive into a bunch of nuances that are happening right now in fair lending, just like our concern with discrimination in the appraisal process. So if you're interested in taking a deep dive into what's happening in the fair lending world, take a look at our Fair Lending Hot Topics, compliancecohort.com/fair lending hot topics with dashes in between, fair-lending-hot-topics, or just go to our store, compliancecohort.com/store. That's all I have for you for this compliance clip. If you're new to the Compliance Cohort, we have free training videos just like this to our basic members. We have hundreds of these videos available to our basic members. It's a free membership. We have articles and newsletters and giveaways and other resources available to our free members. So consider signing up at our site at compliancecohort.com for our basic membership that's absolutely free. If you're an existing member, you know we have premium training on our store like our Fair Lending Hot Topics. We also have Fair Lending for Lenders, Fair Lending Bootcamp, Fair Lending for the Board of Directors. All of those are fair lending topics, and a lot of other programs available in our store. Thanks for watching to the end. If you did, that means you were paying attention. I appreciate, well, I guess you could have been sidetracked and doing something else, and you're looking up now and saying, I didn't pay attention. Well, if you didn't, rewatch this video because it's very valuable. But thanks for watching to the end. You're the reason that I do what I do and that my team does what we do. So thanks so much. And until next time, I hope you have a compliance-filled day. Thanks so much.